Hey guys, tonight we are going to do something a little different. We're going to get our hands, and probably the hem of our very expensive trousers, extremely dirty. We're traveling back to a time when the most thrilling, dangerous, and all-consuming adventure you could possibly embark upon was hunting for a plant. A plant with no flowers, no fruit, and a frankly baffling reproductive cycle. And while that sounds gentle, you probably wouldn't survive this. The sheer unyielding politeness alone would be a challenge, to say nothing of the Corsic's asterisk. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support is what keeps these little journeys into the past going, and it's always deeply appreciated. While you're at it, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is. It's always fascinating to see where in the world these stories are helping people unwind. Asterisk now. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Asterisk. The year is 1851. The air in your London parlor is thick, a familiar cocktail of coal smoke, beeswax polish, and the faint, sweet scent of the tea that has long since gone cold in its porcelain cup. Outside, the city rumbles a constant, low-grade thunder of iron-shod wheels on cobblestones and the distant, rhythmic clang of industry. It's a sound you've known your whole life, the heartbeat of progress. But lately, it feels less like a heartbeat and more like a headache. Asterisk, you're sitting in a high-backed chair. Its velvet worn smooth in the exact shape of a person who has spent too much time sitting and thinking. In your hands is not a newspaper full of dreary politics or a novel of overwrought romance, but a book. Its pages are filled with delicate, impossibly intricate engravings of leaves. Fronds, to be precise. You are in the grip of a fever. Not a real one, mind you. Your doctor would find your temperature perfectly normal, your pulse infuriatingly steady. No, this is something else. A fashionable affliction. A strange and verdant madness that is sweeping across the nation. From the grandest country estates to the most modest suburban homes. It has a name, a wonderfully dramatic and slightly clinical one, coined by the writer Charles Kingsley. Pteridomania, Fern-Fever. Asterisk, it started subtly. First you noticed the patterns. A delicate curl of a fern frond etched into the silver of a new serving spoon. Then, you saw it embroidered on a lady's glove, woven into the pattern of a waistcoat, and even pressed into the surface of a decorative butter pat at a dinner party. The fern motif is everywhere, a silent, creeping invasion of green into the gray, rigid world of Victorian design. Now, you see them in your sleep, unfurling fiddleheads, delicate spores, the fractal geometry of 1,000 tiny leaves branching from a single stem. Asterisk, this obsession is, objectively, a little silly. You are a sensible person. You understand industry and commerce, the importance of a well-starched collar and prompt correspondence. Yet you find yourself utterly captivated by a plant that has existed for millions of years, quietly doing its thing in damp, forgotten corners of the world, long before London was even a muddy Roman outpost. This new hobby is one of the few that crosses class and gender lines with surprising ease. Working men are selling cheap ferns on street corners, while aristocratic ladies are commissioning elaborate glass houses, known as ferneries, to house their exotic collections. It is a shared, national daydream. Asterisk, historians still wonder how, exactly, it all began. What was the spark that lit this slow-burning green fire? Was it the sudden influx of illustrated botanical books, making the natural world accessible and beautiful to the masses? Or perhaps it was the invention of the Wardian case, a miniature portable greenhouse, that suddenly allowed these humidity-loving plants to survive in the dry, gaslit air of a city home. Nathaniel Bagshaw Ward's simple glass box was a game-changer. A tiny bottled ecosystem that protected delicate life from the toxic smog of the industrial world. Or maybe the cause was simpler. Maybe After decades of relentless progress, of building factories and laying railways, everyone just collectively needed to touch something ancient and wild, something real. Asterisk, you trace the outline of a heart-stung fern in your book. Its leaf, simple and whole, unlike the lacy patterns of its cousins. The book describes its preferred habitat: damp, shaded walls, and rocky crevices, often near waterfalls. The words conjure an image so vivid it feels like a memory. You can almost smell the damp stone, hear the gentle trickle of water, feel the cool, clean air on your face. It's a world away from the soot-stained brick and suffocating propriety of your current existence. Asterisk, and that's when the decision crystallizes, quietly and firmly, in your mind. It's no longer enough to look at pictures in a book. It's no longer satisfying to drink tea from a fern-patterned cup. You have the fever, and there is only one cure. You must go out and find them yourself. You will become a pteridologist. The word feels strange and important on your tongue. You stand up, the book left open on the chair. The low rumble of the city seems to fade, replaced by a new sound, the whisper of wind through ancient fronds, the promise of a quiet, green adventure. The obsession has taken root, and you have no choice but to follow where it leads. The decision, once made in the quiet of your parlor, seems to have rewired the world around you. When you wake the next morning, the familiar rumble of the city sounds less like a headache and more like a starting pistol. There is a new clarity, a sense of purpose that has been absent for a very long time. Before the sun has fully burned the gray mist from the Thames, you are standing before your wardrobe, not with the usual sense of sartorial duty, but with the strategic mind of an explorer planning an expedition. Asterisk, this is your first challenge. The Victorian wardrobe is a masterpiece of specialized and often breathtakingly impractical engineering. There are outfits for morning calls, for afternoon promenades, for dinner, for the opera, for simply sitting in your own home and thinking about what to wear next. There is, however, a glaring omission. There is no designated attire for scrambling down a slippery, muddy ravine in pursuit of a plant. You are going to have to improvise. Asterisk, you push past the fine wool suits and starched white shirts, the silk cravats and polished city shoes. You are looking for something with grit, something that won't betray you at the first sign of a puddle. At the very back, you find them, a pair of tweed trousers, thick and slightly scratchy, normally reserved for brisk, respectable walks in the park. They will have to do. You pair them with a sturdy cotton shirt, foregoing the usual stiff collar for something that allows you to, turn your head without extensive planning. Over this, you select a waistcoat not for fashion, but for its many small, useful pockets and a heavy wool jacket. It's the kind of jacket that smells faintly of damp walks and wood smoke, a scent you suddenly find deeply reassuring. Dressed in these layers, you already feel heavier, more grounded, a stark contrast to the light, ornamental creature you are in the city. Asterisk now, for the most critical element, the footwear. Your thin-soled leather shoes, perfect for navigating the smooth flagstones of London, would be a comical form of suicide on a wet, mossy rock. Tucked away in a chest are the boots. They are not elegant. They are thick, dark leather, with laces that seem to go on forever, and soles that are reassuringly solid. Lacing them up is a minor workout, a ritual of pulling and tightening until your ankles feel completely supported, almost mummified. When you stand and walk across the wooden floor, the sound isn't a polite scuff, but a resolute clomp. It's the sound of intention. It's the sound of someone who is going somewhere specific, and who doesn't plan on slipping along the way. Asterisk, with your armor assembled, you turn to your weaponry. Laid out on your bed, the tools of the trade look both serious and slightly absurd. First, the trowel. It's a simple, sturdy thing, but you hold it with a strange reverence. It is the key, the tool that will allow you to gently, respectfully, liberate your prize from the earth. Next to it is a curious object, a long, oval-shaped tin box with a hinged lid and a leather strap, meant to be slung over your shoulder. This is a vasculum, the specialized collecting case of the botanist. Its dark, airtight interior will keep your specimens fresh on the long journey home, protecting their delicate fronds from the brutalities of light and air. It looks a bit like a flattened musical instrument case, and you suspect you will get more than a few strange looks carrying it. Finally, you pick up a long, sturdy walking stick, its bottom tipped with a spike of iron. It is an alpenstock, a tool borrowed from the serious and genuinely dangerous pursuit of mountaineering. For you, it will be a third leg, a probe for testing soft ground, and a tool for pushing aside bothersome brambles. The complete collection trowel, vasculum, and alpenstock makes the entire venture feel official. You are not merely going for a walk. You are undertaking field work. You catch your reflection in the dressing room mirror. The person looking back is an odd hybrid, part gentleman farmer, part eccentric academic, part soldier preparing for a very gentle, very green war. A quiet smile touches your lips. It's a far cry from the sleek, polished figure you're supposed to be. And this, perhaps, is one of the quiet debates of your time. While pioneers of the Rational Dress Society are arguing for more practical clothing for women, men too are caught in their own sartorial straitjackets. In choosing these clothes, you are making a small, personal concession to function over form, a silent rebellion against the tyranny of the top hat. Is it proper to look so? Purposeful. You decide you simply don't care. The call of the fern is stronger than the call of fashion. Your clumping boots on the polished floorboards of your home were one thing. On the cobblestones of the street, they are a declaration of intent. Each step is a small, solid thud against the city's constant hum. You feel wonderfully, purposefully out of place. Men in top hats and crisp suits flow past you like a river of dark fabric, their gazes briefly snagging on your strange, rustic ensemble, the vasculum at your side, the alpenstock in your hand before politely moving on. You are an anomaly, a walking paradox, a city dweller, dressed for the wilderness, and it feels magnificent. The journey to the train station is a journey through smells. The initial scent of street-level coal smoke gives way to the yeasty aroma of a nearby bakery, which is then swiftly overpowered by the distinctly fishy tang of a cart making its morning delivery. It's a thick, chaotic soup of smells you've breathed your entire life. But for the first time, you are acutely aware of it, cataloging each one as if for a final report. You are leaving the known world behind, and your senses are already on high alert. Paddington Station is a cathedral of industry. Its vast iron and glass roof arches high above, trapping a swirling cloud of steam and smoke. The air is alive with the piercing shriek of train whistles, the groan of steel on steel, and the loud, echoing calls of porters. It is a place of immense, controlled power. Here, the steam engine, that great metal beast that powers the factories and fuels the nation's progress, is tamed and organized onto parallel tracks, ready to hurl you from one end of the country to the other at a dizzying 30 miles per hour. This whole adventure, you realize, is only possible because of this relentless march of progress. The very railways that carved up the countryside now provide the easiest means of escaping to it. Historians would one day call it a defining feature of the age. The railway boom of the 1840s didn't just shrink the country. It opened up 1,000 little escape hatches for people just like you. You find your carriage, a third-class compartment with hard wooden benches. You don't mind. Comfort is not the point of today's excursion. With a gut-lurching jolt and a great sigh of steam, the train begins to move. The city slides past your window, a blur of brick and slate. The glass is soon filmed with a fine layer of soot, forcing you to rub a small circle clear with your sleeve to watch the world go by. Rows of identical houses give way to sprawling factories, their chimneys pumping dark plumes into the sky. A mirror image of the engine pulling you along. You wonder, as the rhythm of the rails settles into a steady, hypnotic asterisk, clack, clack, clack asterisk, if this fern fever is really about a love of nature, or if it's a desperate, collective attempt to find a cure for the world you're now leaving behind. Is it a passion, or is it an antidote? Asterisk then. Gradually, the gray begins to surrender to green, first in small, stubborn patches, then in rolling fields dotted with sheep that look like scattered puffs of cotton. The air coming through the open window loses its metallic, smoky edge, replaced by the clean, sweet scent of damp earth and growing things. You feel the tension in your shoulders, a tension you didn't even know was there, begin to dissolve. The rhythmic clatter of the train is no longer the sound of industry, but a lullaby carrying you further and further away. Asterisk an hour later. You step down from the train onto a tiny platform in a town that seems to be little more than a church steeple and a handful of stone cottages. And the first thing that strikes you is the silence. It's not an absence of sound, but a different kind of sound altogether. It is deep and layered, made up of the gentle hum of insects, the distant bleating of a lamb, and the soft rustle of leaves in a light breeze. It's so profound that it feels louder than the city's noise. You stand there for a moment, just breathing it in, letting your ears adjust. Asterisk your map, a simple, hand-drawn affair based on a chapter in your fern book, directs you down a narrow lane, away from the small village. The hard cobblestones of London are a distant memory, replaced by a soft, yielding dirt path. On either side, hedgerows hum with life, and wildflowers you couldn't possibly name add small, bright jolts of color to the overwhelming green. Soon, the lane narrows further, and you step off the path and into the woods. Asterisk the change is instantaneous. The world becomes dim, cool, and hushed. The sunlight struggles to pierce the dense canopy above, reaching the forest floor in dappled, shifting patches. The air is heavy with the scent of moss and decaying leaves, a rich ancient perfume that speaks of seasons turning, of life and death in a constant, quiet cycle. You are now truly in it. The hunt has begun. Your boots make almost no sound on the thick carpet of fallen leaves. The only sounds are the drip of water from unseen leaves and the soft swish of your own tweed jacket. Following the gentle downward slope of the land, you find yourself entering a small, steep-sided valley, a ravine. You stand at the edge of the ravine, a place the locals might call a dell, or a coombe, or a dingle. The English language, you reflect, has a delightful and often hyper-specific vocabulary for dips in the landscape. The air here is noticeably cooler, carrying the clean, metallic scent of moving water. The stream, your unseen guide, whispers from the bottom of the slope. Every surface the bark of the ancient oak trees, the surface of the stones, the very ground beneath your feet is upholstered in a plush, deep green velvet of moss. It's a world that feels prehistoric, untouched, as if a dinosaur could lumber past at any moment without seeming entirely out of place. Asterisk now, the real work begins. Hunting for ferns isn't a brisk, athletic pursuit. It's a slow, contemplative, and intensely observational practice. It requires you to retrain your eyes, to shift your focus from the grand scale of the forest to the miniature world at your feet. At first, all you see is a chaotic, undifferentiated mass of green, but as you stand still, letting your eyes adjust to the low light, the patterns begin to emerge. You are learning the language of the fern. Asterisk, you consult your field guide, a small, pocket-sized volume with beautifully rendered plates. The first and most common character you meet is the bracken. Pta June, it's the brute of the fern world, tall and coarse, growing in great, dense thickets. You see it everywhere on the upper slopes of the ravine, its large, triangular fronds casting deep shadows. An interesting fact you recall from your reading is that bracken is one of the oldest ferns on the planet, with fossils dating back over 55 million years. It's a survivor, a tough, tenacious plant that farmers despise for its habit of taking over pastures. But you can't help but admire its sheer, stubborn persistence. Moving deeper into the damp heart of the ravine, you encounter a more delicate resident, the male fern Dryopteris filix. Its fronds grow in a beautiful, shuttlecock-like rosette, a perfect circle of green rising from a central point. The name is a curious misnomer, a relic of ancient botany when plants were categorized with strangely human, and often incorrect, assumptions. Its counterpart, the lady fern, Ethereum filix femina, is nearby, and you can see why it earned its name. It is finer, lacier, its fronds almost feathery in their delicacy. You reach out and touch one, its surface cool and smooth. It feels impossibly fragile, yet here it is, thriving in this damp, rocky place. The names themselves are a source of constant, quiet amusement. They are a blend of the classical and the folksy, a mix of Latin precision and rural poetry. You spot a patch of heart-stung fern, Asplenium scalopendrium, its long, undivided fronds looking like bright green leather straps. It's easy to imagine a medieval herbalist seeing a resemblance to a deer's tongue. Then there's the polypody fern, growing directly from the mossy branch of a fallen tree, its roots clinging tenaciously to the bark. Its name comes from the Greek for many-footed, a reference to its creeping, foot-like rhizome, the true prize. However, the one that makes your heart beat a little faster is the maidenhair spleenwort Asplenium trichomones. It is tiny, almost invisible unless you are looking for it. It grows in the cracks of damp, shaded rocks, its delicate fronds like tiny ladders of green, growing from a fine black stem that looks like a strand of hair. This is one of the ferns believed to have medicinal properties, hence the spleenwort, and its name a throwback to the doctrine of signatures, the old belief that a plant's appearance hinted at its use. Historians still debate the practical effectiveness of these remedies. Did spleenwort really cure ailments of the spleen, or was it simply a comforting, green-tasting placebo for a population with few other options? Holding a frond gently between your thumb and forefinger, you find it hard to believe this delicate little thing could cure anything, but you also understand the impulse to believe in the magic of the wild. You spend what feels like hours, but is probably only one, simply wandering and identifying. You are not collecting yet. You are just looking, learning the subtle differences in shape, texture, and growth. You are becoming fluent in this new visual language. Each fern you correctly identify feels like a small, personal victory, a secret shared between you and the ancient forest. The world has shrunk to the size of a single mossy rock, but within that tiny space, it has also become infinitely more complex and interesting. The fever is not breaking. If anything, it's getting stronger, fueled by the quiet satisfaction of knowledge and the thrill of discovery. You are no longer just a visitor in this green world. You are beginning to become a citizen. Having familiarized yourself with the local residents of this green, dripping neighborhood, you decide it's time to graduate from observer to participant. The thrill of identification is one thing, but the true purpose of this expedition is acquisition. You are here to bring a piece of this wild, ancient world back to the gray, modern one. You find a relatively flat, moss-covered log to sit on, a perfect natural workbench, and decide to lay out your tools. It feels like a surgeon preparing for a delicate operation, and in a way, it is. With a soft groan of leather, you unbuckle the strap of your vasculum and lay the dark tin case beside you. You pop open the hinged lid. The inside is cool and slightly humid, smelling faintly of metal and damp leaves from some forgotten, half-hearted previous outing in a local park. It is a perfect little void, a pocket of suspended animation, ready to receive its new passenger. You imagine the fern you choose resting inside, oblivious to the rattling and shaking of the train journey home, protected from the harsh realities of the outside world. It is a rather elegant solution for a problem that, until a few years ago, nobody even knew they had. Asterisk next, you unsheath your trowel. It's a simple, honest tool. Its wooden handle worn smooth, its metal blade already bearing a few honorable scratches. You run a thumb over its cool, slightly curved surface. This is where the skill lies. You've read the manuals, of course. They speak of the importance of digging a wide circle around the target specimen, of going deep enough to get the entire root ball, known as the rhizome, without damaging it. A clean extraction is a mark of a true pteridologist. A hacked, mangled root system is the clumsy work of a poacher, a brute who takes without care or understanding. You feel a small tremor of performance anxiety. What if you're a brute and you don't even know it? Asterisk, beside the trowel, you place a ball of twine and a small bundle of damp moss, which you've kept wrapped in oilcloth. These are for after the operation. The moss will be carefully packed around the root ball to keep it moist, and the twine will secure the wrapping, creating a neat, transportable package before it's placed in the vasculum. It's a whole system. A portable life support unit developed through trial and error by a generation of obsessive plant hunters. Asterisk, and then there is the most curious and, in many ways, most important invention of all, the Wardian case. You don't have it with you, of course. It's sitting in your parlor, a beautiful and currently very empty glass box. But it is the ultimate destination for your prize, and the reason this entire hobby is even possible. Nathaniel Bagshaw Ward, a doctor in London's smoky East End, had stumbled upon the principle by accident. He was studying a sphinx moth chrysalis sealed in a glass jar with some soil. He noticed, with some surprise, that a tiny fern and a blade of grass had sprouted and were thriving in the trapped, humid air, protected from the toxic, soot-filled atmosphere outside. From this happy accident, the Wardian case was born. It was a miniature, self-sustaining world, a tiny glass ark that allowed not only for the keeping of ferns in polluted city homes, but also for the transportation of delicate plants across vast oceans. It revolutionized botany, enabling the British Empire to transport tea plants from China to India, and rubber trees from Brazil to Southeast Asia. Your little fern hunt is, you realize, the domestic, hobbyist version of a technology that was busy re-engineering the ecology of the entire planet. Asterisk, this thought gives you pause. Is your gentle hobby an extension of that same colonial impulse to collect, categorize, and control the natural world? Are you a naturalist, or are you just a miniature empire builder with a trowel? It's a question that feels too large and complicated for a quiet afternoon in a sun-dappled ravine. For now, you are simply an enthusiast. You are here out of love for the thing itself, not a desire to conquer it. That, you decide, is a meaningful distinction. Asterisk, you pack away the moss and twine, stand up, and take your trowel and vasculum in hand. Your alpenstock, which had been leaning against the log, feels reassuringly solid. You are now fully equipped. The initial reconnaissance is over. The tools are ready. You are ready. The time for simple admiration has passed. It is now time to dig. You take a deep breath, the cool, damp air filling your lungs, and scan the mossy banks of the stream for the perfect specimen, the one that will make the journey home with you. As you begin your slow, deliberate search along the stream bank, your senses are heightened, tuned to the specific frequency of ferns. You are no longer just looking at the forest. You are reading it, the slight depression in the ground that suggests a consistent water source, the specific type of fissured rock beloved by the quality of light filtering through the canopy. It all means something now. You are in a state of deep, quiet focus, a hunter's trance, and it is in this state that you become aware you are not alone. Asterisk, there is no sudden sound, no snapping twig from a bad melodrama. It's more subtle than that. It's a flicker of movement in your peripheral vision, a shape that doesn't quite belong to the random, chaotic geometry of the woods. You slowly, calmly, turn your head, about 50 yards downstream, half hidden by the broad leaves of a patch of wild garlic. Another figure is crouched near the ground, just as absorbed as you were a moment ago. Asterisk, it's another fern hunt. You can tell instantly. No one else would be dressed in such a similar, peculiar uniform of sturdy tweeds and heavy boots. Slung over their shoulder is the unmistakable shape of a vet. They are leaning forward, trowel in hand, examining something on the ground with an intensity that you recognize immediately. For a moment, you feel a strange sense of camaraderie, a kinship with this fellow enthusiast who has also answered the call of the frond. You are both members of the same secret, slightly ridiculous club. Asterisk, but this warm feeling is quickly followed by a cooler, more complicated one, rivalry. This is not your private Eden. This is contested territory. And just like that, the peaceful, contemplative atmosphere of the ravine is tinged with the faint, metallic taste of competition. It's a very particular kind of Victorian competition. Of course silent, impeccably polite, and waged entirely through posture and implication. There will be no shouting, no challenging glares. There will only be a sudden, shared awareness that the best specimens are a finite resource. Asterisk, your rival has not seen you yet. You have the advantage of surprise, though what you might do with this advantage is unclear. You consider a few options. You could make a subtle cough, a gentle clearing of the throat, to announce your presence in a civilized manner. Or you could simply retreat back the way you came, seeking out a different, unoccupied ravine. But that feels like admitting defeat. No, you decide. You were here first. Or at least, you have no evidence to the contrary. You will continue your hunt. Asterisk, you turn back to your own patch of ground, but your focus is now split. Part of your attention is on the moss and rocks at your feet, but the other part is constantly monitoring the other hunter. You begin to work with a new sense of urgency. Your movements become more efficient, your scanning of the ground more systematic. You find a beautiful specimen of lady fern, its fronds a delicate, pale green, but you leave it. It's too common, too easily found. You are looking for something that your rival, who you have now mentally cast as a villain of sorts, a scoundrel, a veritable fern-fent might overlook. A historical fact floats into your mind. The sheer scale of Pteridomania led to what was called the Great Fern Robbery. Commercial collectors, both professional and amateur, were stripping entire landscapes bare to satisfy the insatiable demand from city dwellers. Rare ferns were becoming even rarer, with some species being driven to local extinction in popular collecting spots like Devon and Wales. People guarded the locations of their prized ferns with the secrecy of a pirate guarding his treasure map. There were even stories, likely exaggerated but telling nonetheless, of collectors misleading their rivals, sending them on wild goose chases for non-existent specimens. It was a gentle, green gold rush. Asterisk, and you realize, with a jolt, are now a part of it. Your quiet, personal quest has become a microcosm of this national obsession, complete with its own petty rivalries and competitive urges. Suddenly, your rival stands up and slings their vasculum over their shoulder. They have clearly made their first acquisition of the day. They turn, and for the first time, your eyes meet across the stream. It is a man of about your own age, with an impressive set of mutton chop whiskers. He gives you a small, almost imperceptible nod. It is a complex gesture, one that communicates acknowledgement, a hint of challenge, and a shared understanding of the absurdity of your mutual predicament. You return the nod, a mirror image of his own restrained greeting. The silent duel has been declared. He turns and begins to move slowly upstream, towards you. The game, as they say, is afoot. or perhaps a front. You resist the urge to smile at your own terrible joke, and turn your attention back to the ground with renewed, almost ferocious concentration. Your rival's approach is not aggressive. It is a slow, meandering drift in your general direction. He stops frequently, stooping to examine a patch of moss or peer into a crevice between rocks. You pretend to be deeply engrossed in your own search, but you are acutely aware of his every move. His presence has added a strange, theatrical pressure to the day. It's like trying to read a book of poetry while someone stands behind you, silently judging your tastes and metaphors. Every fern you inspect and dismiss now feels like a public declaration of your standards. No, not that one, your posture seems to say. Far too common. I am a connoisseur, you see. The stream gurgles happily between you, a neutral party in this silent contest. You decide to cross it, not because the ferns look any more promising. On the other side they look, in fact, suspiciously identical, but because it feels like a strategic move. It is a way of claiming new ground, of demonstrating your adventurous spirit. You use your alpenstock to test the stability of the stepping stones, which are slick with a treacherous, almost luminous layer of green algae. The first stone is solid. The second is too. You are halfway across, feeling rather proud of your agility in your heavy boots, channeling the intrepid explorers you've read about in magazines. This, you will later reflect, is the precise moment when pride comes before a very gentle, very undignified fall. Your boot lands on the third stone. For a fraction of a second, it holds. And then, with a slow, greasy slide, it loses its purchase. Time seems to stretch. You are suspended in a moment of pure, comical disbelief. Your arms windmill in a desperate, flapping attempt to regain balance, an involuntary impression of a startled goose. Your trusty alpenstock, instead of being a source of stability, becomes a kind of pivot point, helping to orchestrate your gentle demise. There is no dramatic splash, no cry of alarm. There is only a soft, squelching thump as you land, not in the water itself, but in a deep, forgivingly soft bank of mud and waterlogged moss at the stream's edge. You are not hurt. The mud has cushioned your fall beautifully, but you are most definitely stuck. Your left leg is sunk almost to the knee in the cold, wet embrace of the earth. A plume of muddy water has soaked the tweed of your trousers, and a single, perfect fern frond, a casualty of your tumble, is now stuck to your jacket like a green badge of shame. You remain perfectly still for a moment, processing the situation. The primary emotion is not pain or fear, but a profound and all-encompassing embarrassment. You slowly lift your head and look towards your rival. He is standing perfectly still on the opposite bank, watching you. He has the good grace not to laugh. He doesn't even smile. He simply observes your predicament with an expression of neutral, scientific curiosity, as if you are a rare type of bog-dwelling creature he has just discovered. After a moment that feels like an eternity, he gives another one of his tiny, economical nods. This one seems to say, a predictable outcome, a rookie mistake. This small, quiet act of non-reaction is somehow far more humiliating than open mockery would have been. You feel a hot flush of shame creep up your neck. The gentle perils of fern hunting, you are discovering, are not about cliffs and chasms, as some of the more sensationalist newspaper articles might suggest. They are about the slow, creeping erosion of one's dignity. The lesser-known danger of pteridomania was not a broken neck, but a bruised ego. With as much decorum as you can muster, you begin the slow, sucking process of extracting your leg from the mud. It makes a series of rude, comical noises with each heave. Your boot finally comes free with a loud slop, and you manage to haul yourself onto the bank, muddy and defeated. You don't dare look at your rival again. You turn your back to him, feigning a sudden, intense interest in a nearby tree trunk and begin the painstaking process of scraping the worst of the mud from your trousers with a handful of leaves. Asterisk, the competition is over. You have lost. He did not need to find a rarer fern or display superior botanical knowledge. He simply needed to remain upright, a feat that has proven beyond your capabilities. You hear a gentle crunch of leaves on the opposite bank and know, without looking, that he is moving on, leaving you to your damp, muddy solitude. The silence that descends once he is gone is thick with the scent of wet earth and your own wounded pride. You are alone again with the ferns, who, you feel certain, are all quietly laughing at you. You remain by the stream for a long time, engaged in the meticulous, almost meditative task of cleaning your trousers. The cold shock of the muddy water has faded, leaving behind a persistent, clammy dampness that serves as a potent reminder of your graceless tumble. Your grand adventure has, for the moment, been reduced to a rather pathetic laundry exercise. The silence of the ravine, once a source of peaceful contemplation, now feels slightly judgmental. You are certain you can hear a faint, condescending rustle from the lady ferns on the opposite bank. Asterisk, finally, you give up. The mud is resilient. Your trousers will bear the stain of your failure all the way back to London. With a sigh of resignation, you decide that now is the perfect time for a strategic retreat, not from the ravine itself, but from the immediate scene of the crime. You find a dry spot a little further up the slope, a place where the sun has managed to burn a warm, dappled circle onto the forest floor. A fallen log, conveniently upholstered in a thick, dry layer of moss, presents itself as the perfect bench. It is, you decide, time for tea. Asterisk, this small, domestic ritual feels like an act of profound self-care, a way to reclaim a sliver of dignity. From your jacket pocket, you produce a small, flat metal flask. It's not filled with anything so scandalous as brandy. This is a scientific expedition, after all, not a country picnic. It contains lukewarm, pre-sweetened tea, a beverage that holds an almost mystical power in the British psyche. It is the universal solvent for embarrassment, disappointment, and general dampness. You unscrew the cap, which cleverly doubles as a tiny cup, and pour yourself a small measure of the brown liquid. Asterisk, alongside the flask, you retrieve a small, slightly squashed package wrapped in wax paper. Inside are two simple, rather plain biscuits. They are not the fancy, iced concoctions you might be served in a London parlor. They are sturdy, functional biscuits, designed for travel and sustenance. As you take the first bite, its dry, oaty flavor fills your mouth, and you feel the frayed edges of your composure begin to knit themselves back together. Asterisk, sitting there on the log, sipping your tea and nibbling your biscuit, you are struck by the simple, profound pleasure of the moment. The earlier tension of the silent competition has vanished, washed away with the mud. Your rival is gone. Your ego is bruised but healing. You are just a person, sitting in the woods, having a snack. The world is reduced to the warmth of the tea, the crunch of the biscuit, and the gentle, indifferent beauty of your surroundings. Asterisk, you lean back against the tree behind your log bench and simply observe. A small, iridescent beetle makes its laborious way across a patch of moss in front of you. Its journey, a miniature epic of determination. A robin, bold and curious, lands on a nearby branch, its head cocked as it watches you, hoping for a stray crumb. The light shifts as the sun moves across the sky, painting the leaves in constantly changing shades of green and gold. Historians often focus on the grand narratives of the Victorian era, the industrial might, the colonial expansion, the rigid social structures, but they sometimes miss these smaller, quieter stories. The growing desire for leisure, for escape, the rise of the hobby. For every factory being built, there was someone like you, seeking out a quiet corner of the world, not for profit or progress, but simply for the sake of it. It was a quiet rebellion, a search for a different kind of wealth. Asterisk, was this the real point of Pteridomania? Perhaps the ferns themselves were just an excuse. Perhaps the real prize was not the plant, but the pursuit. The chance to be quiet. The chance to be alone. The chance to get your trousers muddy and not have anyone of consequence see it happen, a detail you will conveniently omit from your retelling of the day's events. The whole affair, you ponder, is a fascinating contradiction. It is a hobby enabled by the modern world, the trains, the printed books, the mass-produced equipment, but its entire purpose is to escape that very world. Asterisk, you finish your tea, screwing the little cup back onto the flask. The warmth has spread through your chest, a small, glowing ember of contentment. Your earlier embarrassment now seems distant and faintly ridiculous. You have fallen in some mud. It is not a catastrophe. In fact, it has led you to this moment of quiet, unassuming peace. With a renewed sense of purpose, you stand up, brushing the biscuit crumbs from your jacket. The hunt is not over. You have been humbled, yes, but you have not been defeated. And somewhere in this ravine, the perfect fern is still waiting for you. Asterisk, with your composure restored by the restorative powers of tea and biscuits. You feel a shift in your strategy. The competitive, slightly frantic energy you felt earlier has been replaced by a calmer, more patient focus. You are no longer trying to outperform your unseen rival. You are now simply trying to satisfy yourself. The goal has become purer. It's about finding a plant that speaks to you, one that embodies the quiet, damp beauty of this specific place. Asterisk. Your field guide had mentioned that the most delicate and sought-after ferns often grew in the most inaccessible places, on the faces of damp cliffs, deep within rocky crevices, or, most promisingly, in the misty, perpetually damp microclimate created by a waterfall. Following the sound of the stream, you continue your journey deeper into the ravine, which is slowly narrowing, its sides growing steeper and rockier. The gentle, meandering brook of earlier is becoming a more energetic, purposeful stream, tumbling over collections of larger rocks with a low, constant murmur. Asterisk, you are now hunting for a specific target. Before your unceremonious mud bath, you had been idly scanning for anything of interest. Now, you have a name in your mind, a clear image from the plates of your guidebook. Asplenium trichomones, the maidenhair spleenwort. It is not the largest or the most dramatic of the ferns, but it possesses a simple, understated elegance that appeals to you. Its diminutive size and preference for growing in the tightest of spaces make it a true connoisseur's prize. Finding one would be a sign of a keen eye and a patient spirit. It would be the perfect antidote to the clumsiness of your earlier fall. Asterisk, the search requires a new level of attention to detail. You are no longer looking at the broad picture, but scanning the vertical surfaces of the rocks that line the stream. You run your hand over the cool, damp stone. Its surface a complex tapestry of mosses and lichens, in shades of green, gray, and rust. This is a miniature vertical world, with its own unique ecosystems. You peer into every dark crack, every small fissure where a bit of soil might have collected, providing just enough purchase for a root to take hold. You find many things, tiny, jewel-like mushrooms, snails tucked away in their striped shells, and a variety of mosses so intricate they look like miniature forests. But no, spleenwort, asterisk, for a while, you feel a familiar flicker of frustration. Maybe your rival, the whiskered fiend, has already been this way and pilfered all the good specimens. Maybe the guidebook was wrong about this location. Maybe you simply don't have the eye for it. This is the quiet despair of the collector, a feeling that likely unites butterfly hunters, stamp collectors, and pteridologists across the ages. The fear that the thing you are looking for simply isn't there. Asterisk, just as you are about to give up on this particular stretch of rock, you spot it. It's not a full, healthy specimen, but a single, tiny frond, no bigger than your little finger. Peeking out from a crack barely wide enough to accommodate it, It is unmistakably Asplenium trichomones. The fine dark stem, the neat little rows of rounded leaves, it's like a tiny perfect ladder. Your heart gives a little skip. It's here. You are right to keep looking. This single, tiny frond is not a trophy, but a clue. It is evidence that you are in the right habitat. Where there is one, there are likely more. Asterisk, this small discovery renews your determination. You press on, your eyes now perfectly attuned to the specific shape and size of your quarry. You are ignoring the larger, more obvious ferns, your vision filtering out all the botanical noise, and then you see it. Tucked away on a high ledge, about 10 feet up the rock face, is not a single frond, but a whole, thriving clump of it. A small, dense cluster of delicate green, spilling out of a fissure in the rock. It's beautiful. It's perfect. And it is completely, utterly out of reach. Asterisk, there is no easy way to climb the rock face. It is sheer and slick with moisture. To attempt it would be to risk a fall, far more serious than your earlier muddy stumble. A quirky, lesser-known detail of the fern craze was the invention of specialized, and often quite ludicrous equipment for just such a situation. One popular magazine had featured a design for a fern stick, a long, extendable pole, with a complex mechanism of levers and knives at the end for snipping and grabbing ferns from a distance. You, of course, have no such contraption. You have only your trowel and your wits, and neither seems adequate for the task. You are left to stand at the bottom of the rock, gazing up at your prize, a perfect specimen displayed just beyond your grasp. It is a moment of pure, exquisite frustration, a perfect metaphor for the nature of desire itself. You stand there for a long time, staring up at the tauntingly perfect clump of maidenhairs. It's a classic dilemma, the stuff of fables and cautionary tales, the beautiful prize, just out of reach. You contemplate a series of increasingly foolish plans. Could you find a long enough fallen branch to knock it loose? Unlikely. You'd probably just destroy the delicate fronds in the process. Could you, perhaps, try to build a small, precarious pile of rocks to stand on? A recipe for a twisted ankle, if not worse. You are a fern hunter, not a mountaineer, and your brief, muddy encounter with gravity earlier was a stark reminder of your limitations. Asterisk, with a heavy sigh of defeat, you decide to leave it. It is a painful act of renunciation, but a necessary one. Some treasures, you tell yourself in a moment of manufactured wisdom, are meant to be admired from afar. It's a comforting thought, though not a particularly convincing one, as you turn to continue your journey downstream. A new sound cuts through the gentle gurgle of the water and the rustle of leaves. Asterisk, it's the distinct, rhythmic chink, chink, chink of metal striking rock. Asterisk, the sound is coming from further down the ravine, around a bend. It's a sharp, unnatural noise that doesn't belong in this soft, green world. Your first thought is of your rival, the man with the mutton chop whiskers. But this doesn't sound like the careful, surgical work of a trowel. This is a more forceful, more industrial sound. A sense of unease settles over you. You slow your pace, your heavy boots suddenly feeling too loud on the path. You begin to move with a new sense of caution, using the trees and large rocks as cover. Asterisk, as you peer around a large, moss-covered boulder, you see them. Two men, dressed not in the respectable tweed of the amateur naturalist, but in the rough, functional work clothes of laborers. They are not delicately extracting a single specimen. They are systematically dismantling an entire section of the rock face. One man is using a small pickaxe, the source of the chinking sound, to chip away at the stone around a large, dense colony of ferns. The other is prying great, heavy chunks of fern and moss-laden rock away with a crowbar. They work with a grim, efficient silence, their movements economical and destructive. Asterisk, these are not they are fern-poachers. Asterisk, you duck back behind the boulder, your heart thumping. This was the dark, unglamorous underbelly of Pteridomania. While you and your whiskered rival were engaged in a polite, unspoken duel for a single, perfect plant, these men were here for wholesale plunder. They weren't collecting for their own parlors. They were harvesting for the market. They would load these ferns onto a cart, haul them to the nearest town, and sell them to nursery owners or directly on the street corners of London. They were the foot soldiers of the Fern-Fever, the ones who did the dirty work that allowed a lady in Kensington to have a fashionable fernery without ever having to get her own hands dirty. Asterisk. An open question that still occupies historians is the exact nature of this fern trade. Was it a highly organized, almost gangster-like operation, with gangs controlling specific territories? Or was it more of a freelance gig economy, with opportunistic individuals simply trying to make a living from a new, strange demand? The truth is likely somewhere in between. What is certain is that their methods were incredibly destructive. They didn't just take the plants, they often took the entire habitat, leaving behind scarred, barren rock faces that would take decades, if not centuries, to recover. Asterisk. You feel a surge of quiet, righteous anger. They are ruining this beautiful place. They are stealing its treasures, not with the gentle precision of a trowel, but with the brutal efficiency of a You feel an impulse to step out from behind your rock, to confront them, to quote passages from your botany book about conservation and respect for the natural world. Asterisk. But you don't. The men are large, their arms thick with muscle from their labor. Their tools, the pickaxe and the crowbar, look menacing in this peaceful setting. A confrontation would be, at best, pointless, and, at worst, dangerous. You are a gentleman amateur, armed with a walking stick and a small flask of tea. You are not equipped for this kind of fight. Asterisk. So you stay hidden, a silent, unwilling witness to the pillaging of your secret garden. The chinking sound continues, a relentless, metallic chipping away at the peace of the ravine. It's a discouraging, disillusioning moment. Your pure, personal quest has collided with the messy, commercial realities of the world. The Fern-Fever, you realize, isn't just a gentle, quirky hobby. It's also an industry, with a supply chain, and these men are at its raw, extractive beginning. Their presence taints the air, leaving a sour taste of modernity in this ancient place. You back away slowly, silently, leaving them to their work. The thrill of the hunt is gone, replaced by a quiet sense of sadness. Asterisk. Leaving the poachers to their destructive work. You feel a sense of urgency to put as much distance as possible between you and the rhythmic, grim sound of their pickaxe. You move downstream, but the joy has been leached from the expedition. Every patch of ferns you see now seems vulnerable. Every quiet corner of the ravine feels threatened. The presence of the poachers has broken the spell. It feels like discovering that the beautiful, ancient painting you were admiring is, in fact, a clever forgery. The beauty is still there, but a layer of disillusionment now coats everything. Asterisk. The ravine begins to widen again, the steep, rocky walls giving way to gentler, earthier slopes. The stream, which had been narrow and fast-moving, now slows and deepens, pooling in calm, dark patches before spilling over small, natural dams of fallen branches and stones. You are about to turn back, to accept that the day has been a catalogue of minor failures, a rivalry lost, a fall from grace, a prize unattainably, and a confrontation with the ugly side of your own hobby. You are ready to declare the expedition a wash. Asterisk. But then, a new sound reaches you. It is not the sharp chink of a pickaxe, or the gurgle of the stream. It's a deeper, more resonant sound. A constant, low-pitched rush of falling water. A waterfall. Asterisk. Your field guide's words echo in your mind. ... Often near waterfalls. A faint, stubborn flicker of hope ignites within you. A waterfall creates its own unique world, a place of constant mist and humidity, where the air is always cool and the light is always soft. It is the perfect 5-star hotel for a fussy, shade-loving fern, with your weariness temporarily forgotten. You push through a final thicket of hazel trees and step out into a small, secluded clearing, and there it is. It's not a grand, thundering cataract. It's a modest, almost shy waterfall, perhaps 20 feet high. A curtain of white water slides down a smooth, dark rock face, which is covered in a lush, green coat of mosses and liverwort. The water collects in a clear, shallow pool at the bottom, surrounded by smooth, gray stones. Before continuing its journey, as the stream you've been following all day, the air is thick with a fine, cool mist that settles on your skin and clothes like a gentle rain. The sound is a constant, soothing shush, a sound that seems to absorb all the other noises of the forest, including the memory of the poacher's tools. This place feels like a secret. It feels untouched. Asterisk, you walk closer, your boots sinking slightly into the soft, damp ground, and your eyes are immediately drawn to the space behind the waterfall. The rock face is not flat. It curves inward, creating a shallow, cave-like overhang, and in that sheltered, misty space, protected from the direct force of the water, but bathed in its perpetual spray, is a scene of impossible, almost theatrical beauty. Asterisk, it is a vertical garden of ferns. Every crack and ledge is overflowing with them. Great, lush clumps of heart-stung fern, their undivided leaves a vibrant, glossy green, delicate, feathery fronds of the lady fern, dripping with crystal-like beads of water, and there, growing in a perfect, accessible cluster, right at eye level, is the maidenhair spleenwort, Asplenium trichomones. Asterisk, it is the most perfect specimen you have ever seen, far larger and healthier than the one you saw on the unreachable cliff face. Its fronds are a deep, healthy green, growing in a dense, happy community from a crack in the damp rock. Each delicate stem is a glossy, dark black, a beautiful contrast to the bright green of the leaves. Droplets of mist cling to each leaf, sparkling in the filtered light that penetrates the clearing. It feels like stumbling into a secret treasure chamber, a place that exists just for you. Asterisk, you stand there for a full minute, simply admiring it. This is the prize. This is the reason you came. This is the living embodiment of the illustrations in your book. All the day's frustrations, the rival, the mud, the poachers, all of it fades away, rendered insignificant by the simple, profound beauty of this one plant in this one perfect place. It feels like a gift, a reward for your persistence. Asterisk, slowly, reverently, you unsling your vasculum and take out your trowel. You are no longer just a collector. You are a custodian, chosen to transport this small piece of wild perfection back to the city. You approach the rock face, the cool mist kissing your face. The operation must be flawless. This perfect specimen deserves nothing less than your most careful, most respectful work. You are keenly aware of the privilege of this moment, of being the first and hopefully not the last person to truly appreciate this small, hidden masterpiece of the natural world. The air behind the waterfall is cool and alive, a contained world of its own. The constant, gentle hiss of the water is the only sound, muffling the rest of the forest and creating a sense of profound, focused intimacy. You are alone with your prize, and the world has shrunk to this small, damp, sacred space. You take a deep breath, the mist filling your lungs. It's time. Asterisk, with the trowel in one hand, you reach out with the other and gently touch the clump of The fronds are cool, delicate, and surprisingly resilient. You can feel the life in them. This is the moment of truth for the fern hunter, the point where admiration must translate into action. Your earlier anxieties about being a brute with a trowel return, but this time they are tempered with a deep sense of purpose. You will not fail this plant. Asterisk, you begin to dig. The soil packed into the rock crevice is loose and friable, a rich dark compost of decayed leaves and moss. Your trowel sinks in easily, following the instructions from your guidebook. You don't dig directly at the base of the plant, but start several inches away, creating a wide circle around it. You work slowly, with small, careful movements, scooping away the soil bit by bit. It is less like digging and more like archaeology, a careful excavation of a priceless artifact. With each scoop, you feel for the resistance of the root system, the rhizome, making sure not to sever it. The health of the fern, its ability to survive the journey and thrive in its new home, depends entirely on keeping this root ball intact. Asterisk, you recall a fascinating, if slightly grim, detail you read about the Victorian obsession with collecting. It wasn't just ferns. There was orchid delirium, conchology, the collection of shells, and a particularly intense phase of collecting bird eggs, known as oology. This last hobby, in particular, had a devastating impact on bird populations, as collectors sought to acquire entire clutches of eggs, sometimes from the rarest of species. Compared to that, your careful extraction of a single, common fern feels positively saintly. You are not a plunderer. You are an adopter. Asterisk, after several minutes of careful work, you have cleared the soil from around the root ball. It is a dense, fibrous mat, a tightly woven network of dark, wiry roots. Now for the most delicate part of the operation, freeing it from the rock. You slide the blade of your trowel underneath the root ball, gently, patiently, working it back and forth to loosen its grip. For a moment, it holds fast, and then, with a soft, tearing sound of 1,000 tiny root hairs letting go, it comes free. Asterisk, you hold it in the palm of your hand. It is heavier than you expected, dense with soil and life. The fronds tremble slightly from the movement. It is a perfect, self-contained little world. You have it. The quest is complete. A feeling of quiet, profound satisfaction washes over you, deeper and more meaningful than the fleeting thrill of competition. This is not about victory. It is about connection. Asterisk, now, you must prepare it for the journey. You lay the fern gently on a flat, mossy stone, and retrieve the bundle of damp moss and twine from your pocket. You carefully pack the moss around the exposed root ball, creating a moist, protective cocoon. The moss will act as a temporary life support system, preventing the delicate roots from drying out on the journey home. You then take the twine and wrap it around the moss-covered ball, not too tightly, but just enough to hold everything in place. The resulting package is neat, secure, and ready for travel. Asterisk, with the reverence of a museum curator handling a crown jewel. You open your vasculum and place the wrapped fern inside. You add a few extra handfuls of damp moss around it to cushion it from bumps and to maintain the humidity. Then you close the lid, the soft click of the latch sounding wonderfully final. Your prize is secure. Asterisk, the sun is beginning to dip lower in the sky, and the light in the clearing has softened, turning from a bright, dappled green to a deeper, more golden hue. It is time to go. You sling the vasculum over your shoulder. It feels heavier now, not just with the physical weight of the fern and soil, but with the weight of responsibility. You have taken this living thing from its home, and it is now entirely dependent on you for its survival. Asterisk, you take one last look at the waterfall, at the empty space on the rock face where your fern once grew. A tiny pang of guilt mixes with your triumph, but the space is not barren. There are other ferns, other mosses, and in time, you know a new spleenwort will likely take root in that same fertile crack. The forest is resilient. You give a small nod of thanks to the quiet, misty clearing, then turn and begin the slow, triumphant journey back the way you came. The gentle weight of your vasculum, a constant, reassuring presence at your side. Asterisk, the journey home is the reverse of the journey out, but seen through a different lens. The path that seemed fraught with minor perils and competitive tension on the way in is now simply a path. The forest, which felt like a challenging, mysterious wilderness, now feels like a familiar, friendly space. You are no longer an intruder. You are a successful emissary, returning with a precious diplomatic gift from the Kingdom of Green. Asterisk, you walk with a measured, careful pace, acutely aware of the delicate passenger in your vasculum. Every step is deliberate. You avoid loose stones and slippery patches of mud, your earlier fall having served as an excellent, if humbling, lesson. The setting sun casts long, dramatic shadows through the trees, and the air grows cooler, carrying the sweet, earthy scent of the coming evening. The forest is preparing for night, and you, a daytime creature, are making your orderly retreat. Asterisk, you reach the small, quiet train station just as the lamps are being lit, their soft, yellow glow pushing back against the encroaching twilight. The train arrives with a sigh of steam and a squeal of brakes, a noisy, mechanical beast intruding upon the quiet countryside. You find a seat in a nearly empty carriage, placing the vasculum carefully on the bench beside you, as if it were a sleeping child. Asterisk, as the train rattles back towards London, you watch the landscape dissolve into darkness outside your window. The rhythmic clack-clack of the wheels on the rails is a soothing, hypnotic sound. You don't read, or does. You simply sit, replaying the day's small adventures in your mind, the peculiar thrill of preparation, the silent duel with your whiskered rival, the slapstick indignity of your fall, the quiet contemplation over tea, the ugly intrusion of the poachers, and finally, the sublime, secret beauty of the waterfall. It feels like a lifetime of experience packed into a single day. Asterisk, when you finally arrive back in London, the city feels different. The noise of the traffic, the smell of the coal smoke, the endless sea of brick and stone, it all seems harsher, more artificial than it did this morning. The green dripping world of the ravine feels a million miles away, a half-remembered dream. But then you feel the weight of the vasculum in your hand, and you know it was real. You have brought a piece of that dream back with you. Asterisk, in your parlor, the gas lamps cast a warm, steady glow. The room is exactly as you left it, a capsule of civilized order. In the corner, waiting patiently, is the Wardian case. It is a beautiful object, a miniature greenhouse constructed of ornate cast iron and panes of clear glass. Shaped like a tiny, Gothic cathedral, it is, you realize, the perfect fusion of the two worlds you have occupied today, the industrial might of the ironwork and the delicate, natural beauty it is designed to contain. Asterisk, now begins the final, and perhaps most important, stage of the journey. You open the vasculum and carefully retrieve your precious cargo. The maidenhair spleenwort looks healthy and vibrant, none the worse for its travels. You gently unwrap the twine and the protective layer of moss, revealing the dark, intact root ball. Asterisk, the floor of the Wardian case is already lined with a layer of pebbles for drainage and a thick bed of rich, loamy soil you purchased from a nurseryman last week. With your trowel, which you have meticulously cleaned, you dig a small hollow in the center of this prepared earth. This will be the fern's new home, its tiny, glass-walled palace. You place the root ball into the hollow, carefully arranging the fronds and firming the soil around its base. It looks small and slightly lonely in the center of its new, empty world. Asterisk, so you begin to build a world around it. You add a few interesting stones you collected from the stream bank, their surfaces still covered in a fine paper-thin layer of dried algae. You plant a few small clumps of moss, taken from the base of a tree near the waterfall, around the stones, creating a miniature landscape of rolling green hills. You even add a single, elegantly twisted twig to serve as a miniature fallen log. You are not just planting a fern. You are curating a memory, recreating a tiny, perfect fragment of the ravine. Asterisk, once you are satisfied with your arrangement, you take a small watering can and give your new ecosystem a gentle misting, washing the last of the loose soil from the leaves and stones, and settling everything into place. Finally, you lower the heavy glass lid. The seal is airtight. The world is complete. The cycle Nathaniel Bagshaw Ward discovered by accident will now begin. The water will evaporate from the soil, and leaves condense on the cool glass and rain back down, creating a self-sustaining, perpetually humid environment. Your fern is safe now, protected from the city's dry, polluted air. It is a living jewel in a crystal box, a constant, quiet reminder of a world beyond the window. In the days that follow, the Wardian case becomes the gravitational center of your parlor, and indeed, of your domestic life. It is the first thing you look at in the morning, and the last thing you check on at night. You watch it with the nervous, obsessive attention of a new parent. Is it getting enough light, but not too much? Is the condensation on the glass at the correct level, indicating a healthy, stable humidity? Every subtle change is a source of either profound relief or deep anxiety. Asterisk one morning, you notice a single frond has turned slightly yellow at the tip. A quiet panic sets in. You spend the entire day in a state of low-grade dread, convinced you have failed in your custodial duties, that your fern is rejecting its new, gilded prison and is preparing to give up the ghost. You even consult your fern book, frantically reading the chapter on fern ailments and their cures. A grim catalog of rusts, mildews, and insect infestations. But the next day, the yellowing has not spread. The day after, you notice a new fiddlehead, tightly coiled, nascent frond emerging from the base of the plant, a tiny, fuzzy question mark of green. The relief is immense, almost comical in its intensity. Your fern is not dying. It is growing. It has accepted its new home. Asterisk, the Wardian case is more than just a plant in a box. It is a piece of living theater. You watch the slow, almost imperceptible drama of growth unfold. The fiddlehead, over the course of a week, slowly uncoils, like a waking serpent, revealing the intricate, ladder-like structure of a new frond. Water droplets gather on the glass, coalesce, and run down in slow, meandering rivers, a miniature weather system in action. It is a constant, silent, and deeply calming spectacle. Asterisk, soon your strange new obsession becomes a topic of conversation. When you have guests, they are invariably drawn to the glowing glass case in the corner. Good heavens, a friend might exclaim, peering at the miniature world within. What is this peculiar contraption? And you, with a newfound sense of authority, will launch into an explanation of the Wardian principle, of the delicate balance of light and humidity, of the remarkable self-sufficiency of this tiny, sealed ecosystem. You become an evangelist for the fern. Asterisk, your new fern becomes a social trophy, a subtle but clear marker of your taste, your sensitivity, and your connection to the fashionable scientific pursuits of the age. To own a healthy, thriving fern, in a Wardian case, is to demonstrate that you are a modern, cultivated individual. It is a far more interesting conversation piece than a porcelain vase or a dreary landscape painting. It is alive. It is scientific. It is, in its own quiet way, a statement. Asterisk. You find yourself in a state of quiet envy when visiting the homes of more established collectors. You see their grand ferneries, room-sized conservatories filled with exotic species from the far corners of the British Empire, tree ferns from Australia with huge, arching fronds, and delicate, almost translucent filmy ferns from the misty forests of Jamaica. Your single, native spleenwort, in its modest case, seems humble by comparison. This, you realize, is the other side of the collector's passion, the insatiable desire for more. The hobby is a moving target. One fern is a start, but a collection is a goal. Asterisk, a lesser-known aspect of the fern craze was the development of a whole subgenre of decorative arts. There were fern-patterned fabrics, fern-etched glassware, and even fern-themed Castile garden furniture. But the ultimate expression was the home fernery. People built them into their houses, sometimes dedicating entire rooms or elaborate glass-walled extensions to their collections, complete with rockeries, water features, and complex heating systems. It was a way of bringing the wild, romantic landscape of the ravine directly into the heart of the Victorian home. Asterisk, you are not immune to this ambition. You start to dream of expansion, perhaps another, larger, Wardian case. Perhaps you could find a space for a small, heated frame in the garden. You begin to study nursery catalogs, your eyes lingering on the exotic, expensive names, Glycinia, Todea, Hymenophyllum. Your quiet hobby, you realize, has the potential to become a very expensive and all-consuming passion. The Pteridomania has you firmly in its grip, and it is not just about a love of nature anymore. It is also about possession, status, and the quiet, competitive art of cultivation. Your single, perfect spleenwort is no longer the end of the quest. It is simply the beginning of a much larger, and potentially much more ruinous, one. Asterisk years pass. The world outside your parlor window changes, but the small, green world inside your Wardian case remains remarkably constant. Your maidenhair spleenwort has thrived. It is now a lush, dense colony, its fronds pressing up against the glass, a testament to your careful stewardship. It has been joined, over time, by other native species, treasures from other expeditions, to other ravines. A heart-stung fern, with its glossy, strap-like leaves, and a delicate, feathery lady fern, now share the glass palace, creating a multi-layered tapestry of green. Your collection is still modest, but it is yours, and every plant has a story. Asterisk the city, too, has evolved. The rumble of horse-drawn carriages is slowly being supplemented by the strange, popping sputter of the occasional motor car. The gas lamps in your home have been replaced by the steady, clean glow of electric light bulbs, a modern marvel that still feels slightly magical. Fashions have changed, collars have softened, and the world seems to be moving at an ever-increasing pace. Asterisk, and with this acceleration, the green fever, the great Pteridomania that once gripped the nation, has begun to fade. It didn't happen overnight. There was no sudden crash in the fern market. It was a slow, gradual cooling of the national passion. The fern motif, once the height of fashion, begins to look a little dated, a little fussy. The intricate, lacy patterns that once seemed so elegant now feel cluttered to the modern eye, which is beginning to favor cleaner, simpler lines. Other hobbies, other obsessions, have captured the public's imagination. The craze for bicycling, the new passion for photography, the thrilling spectacle of the moving picture. These are the new manias of a new century. Asterisk, you notice it in the homes of your friends. The Wardian cases, once the proud centerpiece of the parlor, are now sometimes relegated to a less conspicuous corner. Their glass, dusty, their inhabitants looking a little neglected. The grand ferneries of the country estates are proving expensive to maintain, and some are being converted to more practical uses. The fashion has simply moved on, as fashions do. Historians still debate the precise reasons for its decline. Was it simply the natural life cycle of a fad? Or was it that the world had become so enamored with its own technological progress that the quiet, ancient appeal of a simple plant no longer held the same power? Perhaps, after a generation of bringing the wilderness indoors, people were simply ready to go outside again, on their bicycles and in their motorcars, to experience nature in a new, more dynamic way. Asterisk, your own passion has not vanished, but it has mellowed. The urgent, competitive drive of your early fern hunting days has softened into a quiet, comfortable companionship. You no longer feel the need to acquire new specimens. You are content to simply be a custodian of the small world you have created. Tending to your ferns has become a ritual, a quiet, meditative practice in a world that seems to demand constant noise and activity. Asterisk, sometimes, in the evening, you sit in your favorite armchair, the one with the velvet worn smooth, and you look at your Wardian case. It is no longer a trophy or a fashionable statement. It is a time capsule. It is a portal back to a specific day, to the feeling of cool mist on your face behind a waterfall. to the quiet satisfaction of a successful hunt. It reminds you of a time when the world felt a little slower, when a single perfect plant could be the object of a grand adventure. Asterisk, you reflect on the strange, beautiful madness of it all. The gentle Victorians, who risked sprained ankles and muddy trousers, who braved the perils of the countryside, all for the love of a flowerless plant. It seems faintly absurd now, a whimsical footnote in the grand, serious narrative of history. And yet, you understand it perfectly. It was never just about the fern. It was about the search. It was about finding a small, quiet space in a loud, bustling world. It was about connecting with something ancient and real, a living fossil that had watched empires rise and fall, and would likely watch many more. Asterisk, the fever has broken, for you and for the nation. But as you watch a single drop of condensation trace a slow path down the glass of the case, you feel a deep and abiding sense of gratitude for having lived through it. It was a strange and gentle obsession, but it taught you to see the world in a different way, to appreciate the quiet, intricate beauty that can be found in the most overlooked of places. And that, you decide, is a kind of wisdom that never goes out of fashion. A gentle quiet settles over the room. The story of the fern, now a soft echo in the back of your mind. The little glass world in the parlor is safe and sound. A tiny sleeping ecosystem. And just like that miniature world, you can feel your own mind beginning to slow, to settle into its own quiet rhythm for the night. The day's sharp edges have been worn smooth by the journey. The little worries and the lingering thoughts now as distant and hazy as the memory of a half-forgotten dream. Asterisk.